With that said, I have my script pulled up because I still use my scripts.
I have mine pulled up. Yep.
Awesome. So go for it.
Okay. And hmm. So, Jolie, um I had an experience the other day coming off of my work day. Um, Collection of things had happened. I had some stressful times, and I was tired, and uh, I was um, something came up. I can't remember exactly what the conflict was, but there was some minor conflict, and I was trying to express how um, I was struggling to be present, and I didn't really want to get deep into stuff because I wasn't feeling resourced, and I was trying to make myself understood, trying to make myself seen, and it didn't seem to be working.
Okay.
Um,
Can I
I
can I make sure I have that clear?
Yeah,
So Ken has shared the beginning of his experience, and I'm gonna practice mirroring. So what I'm hearing you say, Ken, is that you're feeling a little bit unsure of how to even put into words exactly what you're feeling, but you had recently, you had at least one experience, maybe more, of coming off of a work day with a lot of your own stuff, like having your own feelings, and you were really struggling to feel heard and seen by me.
yeah. Um, yes, that is what I'm trying to say. Um, I felt that I was um, felt like I was trying to communicate a that I was tired, that I wasn't in a good spot for working through some stuff that I had felt like was optional and could be put off, uh, and just I didn't feel heard.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that maybe I maybe pushing to get up like to like address a relational issue and you were tired? Because
I
that's what
felt
I'm hearing kind of
pressured.
under the surface.
I felt pressured to continue on anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, to continue
So we had
working.
a kerfuffle and I wasn't letting you state your need
Yeah,
to sleep, probably because you work pretty late. So I'm guessing you actually wanted to go to sleep. Am I getting that?
that is one of yeah, that is one of the times that this comes up.
Oh,
That
okay.
is
So
one of
this
the
isn't so this is
trickier
more of
times.
a pattern. You're bringing up more of a pattern than just an incident.
As I talk about it, I'm aware that this isn't the only time it happens. It does feel like it's like slotting into a little groove
Yeah.
of times when I felt like I had to just push on.
Okay. So I'm hearing that when you feel that I have some kind of relational issue, there's been some kind of rupture, or there's something I feel like needs to get worked out, that you have felt like you need to push on and you can't take care of your body and mind, and that I'm pushing back, like you're feeling like I'm not able to hear your boundary, your no.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else to that that would help me understand what you're experiencing?
Mm, no, I think that covers it.
Okay. So that's step one. Step one could go on for a while, but I'm going to actually move to step two. If you're feeling complete in that expression, Ken, I'm going to move to step two, where the listener takes the wheel for a bit.
And I want to say that for in that first step, for me, when I'm a listener, one of the most important skills is suspension of the need to agree or disagree. Just it's just a listening thing, and
Yeah.
that's all. But
So,
yes, we can move on to the
okay.
validation step.
So you shared and I mirrored. And yeah, it's not important whether I agree with your perspective there. I simply mirrored what I heard. And now I'm going to move to validate. And I often call validate can feel awkward to some people, but I like the
Yeah.
sentence starters. So I'm going to use the sentence starters suggested by Hunt and Hendrix. That so Ken, what you're saying makes sense to me. It makes sense to me because that I know that when I feel a rupture or when I feel distance from you, I will push through my own physical boundaries to the point of exhaustion and sickness. So it makes sense to me that I would also be willing to push through yours. I can understand that that would cause you pain, and that you might feel like you aren't able to hold or have a boundary around your needs. And I could also imagine that because this is relational stuff, it makes sense to me that you would feel this and that you might feel a little scared. Am I getting that right?
Yes, definitely. I hadn't mentioned it, but um, it it does. There's a sense of fear in there coming from various places inside me. But yes, you get that right.
Okay. Does it feel like I'm hearing you?
It does. Yes,
And
I
is is there anything else that you want to add to this to help me understand?
um I feel like we're covering it pretty well. No, I feel good.
I have a question if I can ask it. How does it feel in your body when you're experiencing that lack of boundary or your boundary being overrun?
Um, that's where they are fear signals in my body.
Okay.
Um, it feels stressful and anxiety, one of those.
Okay.
So
So I'm going to move to step three then. I feel ready to move to step three. This one's actually moving really fast. We've had these take hours, but this one's moving relatively quickly. And the step three is empathize. And as the listener, again, I steer here. I take the first step to say, I imagine, I imagine that you're feeling scared. And I don't want to name the different levels. I imagine that you're feeling scared to bring this up. I imagine that you're feeling scared when you're trying to set the boundary. And I also imagine that you're feeling scared because you don't necessarily know what your boundaries or edges are. And so you're scared to even state them because you're not 100% sure that that's your true boundary. Is that how you feel?
that is how I feel. You've known me a long time.
I have known you a long
That
time.
is that's accurate because I know that my boundaries, I don't always know exactly where they are or how to express them, and so when I'm trying to, it's it's a very nerve-wracking thing.
Yeah. Is there anything more that you're feeling? Because scared is one, but I feel like there might be something else. And I want to take I'm going to take a risk here. I feel like you might be angry too, but not want
Yeah,
to say
that
it.
so when you asked the question, I mean, it's funny, the relationship between fear and anger is real tight. Sometimes anger feels like fear, sometimes fear feels like anger, but in these cases, yeah, there's a frustration and anger can come up because my boundaries are being pushed. Even when I don't know where they are, when they get pushed, I still feel like, oh, apparently that's past what I'm agreeing to.
Yeah. So I am now imagine that you are feeling that anger come up and that then you might even move into confusion about whether it's safe to express that anger, especially because we're talking about a time when I'm telling you that there's a rupture, there's a problem, there's some kind of relational thing. So now if you're angry, I could imagine you feeling the need to stuff that anger down or set it aside.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything else that would help me understand what else you feel when this comes up? Because you're naming a pattern, so I imagine that it's really complicated and that it's not just like, "Ooh, this happened last Sunday." This is like something that happens in our relationship.
Well, I definitely want to say that while all of the things that we've been talking about in your reflection to me is accurate, and also I'm aware of the difficult position that I put you in because my boundaries aren't clear
Mm,
and because my no isn't always a real clear no. And I get frustrated. So sometimes the anger and frustration is pointed at myself. It's like, I don't think I communicated that well enough. And then the confusion that you mentioned comes up. It's like, did I? Didn't I? How about, yep. So,
yeah. Yeah. So I could imagine that confusion and frustration could even turn into shame if you're not sure where your boundaries are, or you start thinking about, did I state my boundary? Did I share it? Like, and as a
yeah.
person who's been practicing relationship stuff for a long time, I could imagine you getting into a shame spiral even about it. And I could imagine also my hijacking. I could imagine my hijacking that and not receiving the messages, clear messages that you are giving. I could imagine myself like putting myself in the hurt position. I could totally imagine that happening to you. Is that true?
Yeah. It gets, we can start to resonate off each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ping, ping, ping. Yeah. Okay. So is there anything else that you want to share that would help you feel understood here?
No, I feel understood now.
Okay. So we're gonna flip roles then. Let's switch the roles. I'll be the speaker. And at the end of this, we'll talk about what to do next. So, okay, let me center myself as the speaker. I'm going to start with the sentence stem because it'll help me remind myself. Ken, as you're sharing that, I am experiencing some sadness and some shame around how uh, my needs tend to feel so big, so loud, and so overwhelming to myself that I bring them to you and I expect to be put in the first position. I expect to be put in the priority position if I have a need. Where I know that if I have like a celebration, I might be willing to put it off. If I have a need, I I feel that. I feel that I feel some shame coming up just in the sharing because I know that I do put myself into that position of, you got to fix this with me now. You can't abandon me now. And so I'm having some feelings about it. I want to take ownership of those feelings. And yeah, I feel the complexity of this. Can you mirror that back for me?
Yeah. So I'm hearing you say that you, uh, that you've heard what I said and that you understand yourself to to center your needs, to bring them first in front, and that you have feelings about that, um, feelings of some shame and sadness around doing
Oh,
that.
yeah. Okay. I also feel pride. As you're saying it, I can feel myself feeling pride for putting myself first and for claiming that space. Yeah, I feel there's like there's you mentioned confusion. I actually feel conflict. Like, do I feel shame or do I actually feel really proud of myself that I'm willing to put myself in that position? And
Mm,
the shame is around overriding your boundaries, but the celebration for me is, oh, I am refusing to allow myself to be abandoned without making a fuss. Like I'm going to make a fuss. So I'm also feeling some kind of pride in having made a fuss when it was uncomfortable for you.
mm.
Um, and I feel, yeah, that feels confusing to name, but there it is.
Okay. Can I mirror that back for you?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I just mirror. It's a little tricky because I'm blurring into validate now, but let me just mirror. You, you're, in addition to some sadness and shame that you've described about pushing past my boundaries, you're also feeling pride about holding yours.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, you put that really well. I feel very heard and seen there.
All right. And is there more?
No, that feels complete. I feel like there's a lot to those words, but I
Mm.
feel like you get it. Um, yeah, go ahead. We can move forward.
Okay. Then we're ready for step two. And starting with my sentence stem here, well, that makes sense to me because I'm uh, the need to set your boundaries around maintaining strong connections in the context of this relationship we have, where that's that's what we work on, right? And so it makes sense to me that you would feel pride around doing the hard thing and letting me manage my whatever my feelings are about that. Um, and so, yeah, I can understand that you would feel some sadness around um, maybe causing me some discomfort. But I also understand that there would be pride in what this is a thing that you need.
Yeah,
Does it feel like I'm hearing you?
it does. And the additional piece is that I do feel flat out ashamed that I override your boundaries, that I push your boundaries, that I don't receive them. And that's tinged just a little bit with, yeah, and I don't want to overfunction and like hold your boundaries for you. So I'm feeling like, yeah, it's rude of me to do that. It's even cruel, but also if you don't state them clearly and plainly, I don't want to take responsibility for that. So both.
And that totally makes sense to me that you wouldn't want to be over functioning at all. Um, and so that influences all of this. So
Yeah.
anything
Uh,
else I need to know?
no, that feels good. That feels good. I feel like we can move forward.
All right. So let's see here. So
Step
I
3 is
can,
empathize.
yeah,
So
empathize.
Ken's gonna move into, again, he's gonna take the lead here and offer his empathy.
So I can imagine that um, you're feeling some uh, maybe frustration around this coming up um, because because of the overfunctioning. I understand feeling sad about making me uncomfortable, but I can imagine being frustrated that I put you in a position where you you feel a need to push the way you do, rather than um,
Yeah.
arranging the situation in a way that it's a dialogue rather than a boundary competition.
That's a really good way to put it. That makes me feel very seen. I I might also put it that I often feel like I have to be the problem person. I have to be the person who has the problem.
Mm.
So I feel the need to be that like the center of the problem, the rupture, the difficulty, and that puts me in kind of a one down spot where I feel like I'm the broken one, or I'm the one who's experiencing pain and you just want to rest.
Mm.
And that leaves me feeling kind of like there's judgment there. I can feel how I feel almost childlike in that spot. So there's, yeah, the frustration of like the boundary pushing, and the battle, but also, why do I always have to bring stuff up? That's the phrase that keeps rising to the top for me. And maybe that's what I should have said at the top is, why do I have to be the one to bring up the stuff? Um, so even though you talked about being tired and having a boundary and just not wanting to work on a relationship issue at a particular time, yeah, but when are you ever coming in a place of like, hey, this is a good time for me to work on it, and centering, hey, this is a good time. So that's what I would like to feel validated on. So to kind of circle back, when are you going to initiate that energy? Because if I have to initiate it, then I feel pressure to hold my boundary around. No, we have to work this through. It was a lot. That was a lot.
That 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 makes perfect sense to me. Um, I can imagine that you would be feeling um, that, yeah, you have to hold the container. You have to like create the container every time. And you can only create containers for your stuff. So that means you're always the one bringing up the stuff, and I'm the one reacting to it. Hmm. That's a very valuable thing
Yeah, so I
to
feel
take
like we
away
just
from this.
looped back around through the steps in a really quick way. Um, so I didn't notice at first that what the other point of contention for me would be, oh, right. Um, typically you don't bring your stuff up. And so it's always about whether you're setting a boundary of working on our relationship, but it's my problems.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
mhm.
I feel like I feel like we're getting each other here that if you proactively brought stuff up, then it would make it easier for me to receive your boundary when I have something and I'm like, I want to work on this. And you're just tired because you get to be tired.
So right. And so I feel like we have moved actually past step 3 and
Yep.
into what are we going to do with the information that we just shared.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's officially call this like, do you feel heard? I feel heard. Do you
I
feel
feel heard.
okay?
Yes.